Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 28th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. I'll take a roll call vote since we have a member online. Start with Alan,
Alan Goshen here.
Greg Dorothy,
Here.
Pat Nelson here.
Sue Felshin,
Here.
Abby,
Here.
and myself, Rob Almeida here. So we'll move on to the 7 p.m. agenda item, the joint meeting with the West Concord Advisory Committee. Yeah, that'd be great. Absolutely.
Drag chairs up. here.
Absolutely. So I would think first order is taking attendance. and Opening your meeting.
Okay, I'm Anna Hill. Here.
John Cooley.
Barbara Morse, I'm the clerk.
And which members we have online?
Nicole Hammond.
Here.
I don't see anyone.
I see.
That's it for if I can see everybody. I do know that we have two people who are gonna be late. They were hoping to get here by 7:30, but they don't know if they'll make it.
Understood.
Should we take a different agenda item first?
Lindsay just joined, Anna.
Lindsay Wolf. Lindsay, can you say you're here?
Yes, Lindsay Wolf is here.
Think we're ready to go ahead. So one of the items with this meeting today with having our, biannual meeting with the West Concord Advisory Committee, one of the things we discussed, or we've been talking about, what is the charge of the committee in relation to it with the planning board. It is a planning board subcommittee, but looking at a lot of the things that have been on the agenda for the West Concord Advisory Committee, a lot of the things do not fall exactly under the purview of the planning board. An example today was we got forwarded a letter regarding a pickleball court, which, that's really not under our purview here. So, I'm not sure if the members have had a chance to talk amongst themselves or what discussions have been engaged and what, Anna, what your thoughts are, and if you want to.
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk as a group, but I can tell you how the issue arose in our meeting. And that was that we were talking about different things that we were interested in, and Elizabeth pointed out that they weren't really related to the planning board. But it does seem like repeatedly members of the community come to us because they think that we're sort of a one-stop shopping for West Concord and all issues related to it. So the question was really, does there need to be a group like that sort of fields issues related to the development of West Concord, now that there's so much of it, whether it's us or whether, we maintain our more narrow focus on things related to the planning board and some other group that does that. But it seems like the community is sort of expecting that. So that was sort of how the issue arose. I think, we would be happy to get guidance from you about what would be helpful for your committee for us to focus on, if you'd like us to do that. Or if you want us to think more broadly about our charge in general, we can go off and do that.
So I mean, I'm not sure if the other members or, have really dove into what, has been going on with the West Concord Advisory Committee. Greg, you're probably, the person who has the most intimate knowledge, having served on that committee up till last year.
Yep.
So, one of the things is that the original charge for the committee was to support, the planning board, not really, there's been a lot of other topics that they've been diving into that, great for the community, but not necessarily, we care about here because they're not part of our charge. So, we've had some discussions offline just to kind of spur this discussion forward, just to see what, kind of put a feeler out there of what's the best way to go forward, because the last thing we want to do is if this is the avenue that the community sees as, you know, a way to get some of these small projects that have an impact on West Concord to move forward, you know, great, but, you know, in terms of relating to what we need to look at and what, you know, what support we're looking for from the committee, it's not, under our, it's not really worth our time. It's just gonna tie up more time. So, and I think, and Elizabeth, you can chime in whatever you want, I think the best opportunity is to look at the charge and, you know, amongst yourselves, and then we come back together and talk, obviously, if you get a draft to us beforehand, and so we all have an opportunity to study it and also engage our, select board members as well that are liaisons to both respective to the committee and to this board to kind of see where, what will be the best path forward and making sure that what you come up with is, gonna work. I don't know if anyone has any other comment.
Go ahead. Well, I'm just wondering if someone can just tell me, when did the West Concord, advisory?
Exactly subsequent to the end of the West Concord Task Force, which wound up in, what was it, about 2012 or so?
Okay,
2008.
2000,
2008.
wait, that's when the committee ended? Good grief.
That was one of the
Okay.
recommendations by the West Concord Task Force following the 2007 Village Center study. And then the West Concord Center Master Plan was 2010.
Oh, okay, yes, the West Concord Task Force was initiated in 2008, but it wound down 4 or 5 years later upon completion of the master plan, and the West Concord Advisory Committee was kind of to execute and oversee the plan. And the plan has a very specific area only related to the business and industrial districts of West Concord. And just because that's the way it was initiated doesn't mean that's why that it has to stay that way.
So what you said was it was developed with the charge of supporting the Concord Planning Board,
Correct.
which we should be doing all of Concord. And so it would be to weigh in with some more heft on issues that affect West Concord, or bring issues
So
to
no,
the,
this is more, it's more,
Or zoning.
we wanna keep, if this committee is, to keep their charge in the way they're gonna keep their bandwidth with West Concord. Because we do see, there's a lot of development that is occurring in West Concord. We're gonna need a lot of support with those projects. Before, the last time the charge was amended was in 2018. So
Okay.
this was before MCI, Baker Ave, all these projects down the road, down the line that have come up or are coming up or are in the pipeline, before they were even, an idea. So, we don't want to come, just make one broad decision and say, oh, we only want to focus on the planning board items, if there are multiple people that see value in addition to having that as a platform, to feel projects out, not necessarily have your approval for, certain projects, but kind of, test the waters in regards to, a project coming up. We don't want to add more unnecessary layers to developers to build projects as well. We don't want to have them get an approval from one board, go to another one, then we don't approve something and it has to go back to another board. We don't want to have all these multitude of layers that make, we don't want to have no layers, but we don't want to have too many layers as well to make it difficult for these projects to move
and
forward.
was that the intent at first, and did it over these years? Developers did have to go to the West Concord?
Well, yes, but not for approval, for recommendation, which is.
And they don't
different.
have to come to us.
Yeah.
It's not a requirement.
Yeah,
Okay,
It's by the,
Well,
it's a
the-
choice.
there is a checkbox on the form that asks, did you talk to the West Concord Advisory Committee? But if you say no, that doesn't mean that your proposal is turned down.
Right.
It's just tested.
And we're supposed to advise by the plan, which we just spent a year revising and going through and checking off what's already been accomplished and what what do we think really doesn't apply anymore? And so we updated that plan, which should also help coalesce what we might work together as a
Mhm.
committee. I think there is a lot of confusion about whether we can actually approve something or not approve something, even among residents, sometimes among ourselves. Oh, wait a minute, do they have to come to us? Do they not have to come to us? Why didn't they come to us? You know, how is it this thing is going on and we, you know, the guitar museum being an excellent example, even though it's in the very, very, very early stages. It was well along in thinking and planning, and they hadn't come to us at all. We finally got them to come and just chat about it, and so I think that I think the other piece that, in addition to what Anna said, is that there are a lot of other little committees that do things in West Concord nowadays that didn't exist even 5 years ago. And I often see, if I'm following their minutes, that there's a lot of overlap. And so if nothing else, maybe we need a more cohesive group of people focusing on issues that occur in the West Concord Village area. And there's always a little bit debate about, so should we be focusing on something that's 2 miles down the road? Even though technically it's still in what most of us would consider West Concord? Or should we really just be focusing on the village area? Clearly MCI Concord is such an enormous project. I think Elizabeth said something really important at our last meeting, which was every committee and every resident should be focusing and thinking about MCI. And so I'm sure we'll have opinions like everybody else, but that's not going to be just from us by any stretch of the imagination.
But technically, at the moment, your charge, I believe, forbids you from paying attention to it, which just really seems like it
I
needs an
just read it
update.
again this afternoon, which, what,
It does.
I thought it says it only covers the West Concord master plan area unless,
which was outlined very specifically. Yeah.
right,
But would
and
that
yet,
also include the proposed pocket park?
exactly.
And does it include ride out and the pickleball courts about the letter we got in the?
It really seems like it needs an update of some.
Right, right.
And I think that's where, you know, if we can engage the, you know, select board on that, the representatives, excuse me, the liaisons, sorry,
Yeah.
for the board. To West Concord Advisory Group and Committee, sorry, and our board as well, and see what, you know, which way we want to look at the geographical area and how best to move forward. You know, we don't want to have go to the select board if we amend the charge with, you know, too broad of a scope, but you know, as well. So
Yeah, to think of an issue from some time ago, there was a question of whether the WCAC could opine about traffic safety on Route 62, which is not in the master plan area and is covered by other committees such as Public Works and Transportation Advisory. And yet, as you say, people come to you with one-stop shopping, but there's a difference between saying, oh, yes, we'll look at that for you versus I'm so glad you came to us and we can advise you on what to do. Go talk to these other people. Because you can't just be everything.
To some extent, it could be a little bit more about training or sort of defining maybe an onboarding, like what is our role? What do we do in that situation? Confusion aside, though, I think the intent of having a committee represent the area of West Concord is important for the planning board, maybe more generally, just because it's such like a kind of a cohesive neighborhood over there, and it has so many different cultural aspects to it. So,
And especially now with so much going on.
so I think the work, yeah, and I think the working model of, you know, the planning board can lean back on the WCAC for input, not approval, but input on a particular project or issue makes a lot of sense. The confusion might come from just like I said, like maybe not clarity and sort of onboarding new members, or maybe our purview has broadened over time as people have just tried to come to us.
Is the confusion also, or am I not getting this? because it's considered part of the planning board or part sort of under a subcommittee of the planning board, that seems to me very confusing.
Well, look at it the other way around, which is that when the West Concord Task Force was created, it was specifically as a subcommittee of the planning board because it was to look at the potential redevelopment of the Harold Street, and Bradford Street, and potentially some development right in the center of West Concord, where the old auto dealership buildings are, and that was literally a planning issue because it was about what might be redeveloped there, if anything. And so when the advisory committee was created, that was going on from the task force. So of course it was still a subcommittee, but things can drift over time.
Well, yeah, I think it's really important that West Concord has a way of gathering information and using the connections that. But I guess I've always struggled with why it's part of the planning board, why it's not a West Concord Advisory Committee with its own charge and roles and responsibilities and comes and then collaborates and comes to the planning board.
Well, that's essentially what we are.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's essentially what we are. We have our own charge.
Yeah.
We regularly meet with representatives of the planning board. I think, and clearly, a lot of the current development that's going on in the town is going on in the West Concord area.
Yeah.
Because there's land there. I think our concern has become as the outlines broaden, how far does our participation in it, either advising the planning board or anybody else, or should we really be sticking very, very closely to what is sort of an outline around what many people think of as the village?
I think really, you know, part of it is we need to, you know, the charge hasn't been updated in, we'll call it 7 years at this point. You know, coupled with everything going on, we need to look at what, and I think Elizabeth, I'm not sure if we need to get Wendy and Paul engaged, is to look at the, you know, what area that's gonna encompass, just like you said, is it gonna encompass just the, you know, the village proper, or are we gonna, you know, look at some of the areas that are, that abut that existing map, you know?
We might define it as a core geography and then areas that secondarily impact that, like, you know, the MCI, we think of MCI not because it's within the boundary, but because it's obviously going to have an impact on West Concord. So maybe,
Out of every area, that's West Concord's gonna be affected the
Right.
most, you know,
yeah,
versus.
Yeah, and of course, it wouldn't have been included when the first area was drawn because it belongs to the state.
Yeah.
Still does, in fact.
Yep.
But another question is, should it include all of Baker Ave Extension, which on the one hand isn't village center, but on the other hand is business properties that one hopes will soon be better connected through the pedestrian bridge.
Mhm.
It becomes, and are better connected by the rail trail,
Right.
it becomes much more central.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, should Forest Ridge be included with its upcoming big development? Well, that's really not very well connected to the village
Which
of
one?
West Concord. The other 40B, the one that's
Oh,
off
up by
on the edge of
Thoroughfare,
town.
yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Will affect the village.
It will, but you know, a lot of things around Concord will connect, will
Affect,
affect the
yeah.
village, and things in West Concord will affect the rest of Concord. But is it really tightly tied? I wouldn't reject it, that question out of hand, but it seems much less obvious than the question of MCI or even Baker Ave
Mhm.
Extension.
Or 1440.
Now, that one's really tricky because, yeah, it's not business, it's just residential, but on the other hand, a pocket park would be public land if there is one.
Right,
So.
right.
One way perhaps to talk about it in the charge would be to say current or proposed non-residential or public lands, because that would cover MCI and a pocket park. without them actually being anything at the moment other than a closed state prison and.
Well, that's sort of what you're suggesting, I
Yeah.
think, which is we keep the boundaries that we currently have with, what was the phrase you used?
Well, I just said like secondarily, part of our charge would be to participate in discussions about areas that impact that area, that central. So
Sure.
anything that impacts that, which would, by the way, could include all the way out to the hills.
Or the park over at the Row, the new park at the Row School.
The new playground, yeah.
The playground, right, since there'll be some public access.
So
it's
you
tricky.
would like us to sort of go off and think about it first, because like last year, I think we spent, as Barbara said, we spent the year updating the master plan, and then the second thing we were asked to do was put together priorities for MCI and submit those to the MC Metro. And that was really what we did all year. So the other question I have is just, are there things that you need us to do? And just to think about those, so when we come back with our ideas.
And I think a lot of it is, it's for projects that are coming up, I mean, everyone's chomping in town at the bit for MCI, but it's gonna take time to have the land dissolved by DCAM. Group, get a developer board, get plans approved. It's gonna take years, I know everyone wants, but we have to appreciate there's a process with DCAM being involved. So, but, we need to set ourselves up for success in the future with both boards, because a lot of members that are on now won't be on at that time, but we want to make sure that everything's set up, so when the time does come, there'll be some people still on, but they'll have a clear path on what they'll be able to do. So we don't have this, situation that we have right now, or, a little bit of confusion. So, I mean, that's just my thought on it, just kind of, I know I'm probably looking at it a little bit black and white, but I think for me, that's the best benefit for us, because, there's gonna be a lot of projects, there's gonna be a lot of public engagement too with those projects as well. And, you're residents of that area, it's the front line, so. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, or.
I guess I have a question. So when the new projects come, they come to the planning board because there's zoning issues, because we have specific things that people have to get approvals for. How do you participate in discussions of projects that are coming to West Concord? What's the pathway for the West Concord Advisory Committee, or for West Concord to be informed of someone coming to the planning board? I mean, you can look at the agendas, you can go to the meetings and all of that, but is there some kind of a link? Does this make any
You
sense?
mentioned a checkbox, which
Right.
I actually didn't know about.
On the
Okay, the
application,
checkbox,
one would
check-
hope that people seeing the checkbox asking, have you talked to the West Concord Advisory Committee, would say, oh, maybe I should find out what that is. But nevertheless, there are, as you have mentioned, occasional projects that just, nope. Oh, well.
So if somebody doesn't check that off and the application comes to the town, then there would be some process by which the developer would be told to go to the.
It's not a requirement.
No, not a requirement. So honestly, I don't have any idea what makes.
So I'm
one-
gonna jump in right here.
That's why I was waiting to give Elizabeth a chance to jump in.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You guys she had her.
So the first line for applicants is usually our office. And so we meet with them, usually it involves the building commissioner. From there, it may involve a much wider town staff review meeting to talk through a concept that a developer or property owner may have. Talk about issues and concerns, all different town staff. And when it looks like a property owner or a developer will likely, move forward with something, it's during those meetings that we also tell them that. So, what you also want to do is plan to go to the West Concord Advisory Committee and get their input. They basically have, a little bit more of the pulse of the community, they're, very, hands-on and a little bit more engaged in the master plan, the design guidelines, and, get their input, because they will be making a recommendation to the planning board or, through the planning board to the Board of Appeals. So that conversation happens from the very beginning. And, there have been applicants that have, gone to the West Concord Advisory Committee, and it hasn't really been a good application, and it ends up not being a very good experience. And then, they decide, what, well, we're not going anymore. The example of, the Guitar Museum, they're not there yet. So, they came with, very conceptual ideas, and, when they get to the next point, yes, more than likely they'll come back to the West Concord Advisory Committee before they ultimately finalize their plans and submit, for their formal application review, which isn't going to be approved by the planning board. They're going to need a special permit in some fashion from the Board of Appeals. So even the planning board will be making a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. So to Rob's point, this is where, we kind of want to realize, by being, assisting economic vitality and trying to get the best projects put forth, somebody coming to the West Concord Advisory Committee and getting, some really good feedback, after that point, they may not go back to the West Concord Advisory Committee, because they're going to have multiple meetings with the planning board and then multiple meetings with the Board of Appeals. So, I don't think there can be, a process that's much more, formal than what we already have. But to the point of the conversation on area, I think it was, I think it's, who was it, John? I think, did you mention, you have your core area, but then you kind of have, you have your next, you have 128, and then you have your 495, like the New England Deaconess Project. Not within the village center, but it definitely has a connection, pedestrian connection and vehicle, impacts that can happen. So I do think you can't, you really can't just say, everything south of, Route 2. That's not helpful either. But I think on a case by case, project by project basis, you can kind of have those, that next ring of influence.
That was a really good summary.
Yeah.
That's
thank
a
you,
very
thanks.
specific example, not to harp on this as a real issue, but in the Guitar Museum example, the neighbors are all very aware of a special tree that's right in front of the building.
Okay,
And we want to make sure that they don't take the tree out. And everybody's really focused on that. And I think if we didn't have the WCAC to represent the neighbors in that kind of a situation, you'd lose sight of those kinds of details.
okay.
Yeah.
That was
But
very helpful.
I'm gonna, but that, that one example, yes, there's, a lot of conversation and concern about, preserving that tree. And they hear that issue and concern, and they, they hire the experts to, here's the issue and concern, what can we do? And, they're going to hire an arborist, and, the arborist, yeah, it's a beautiful tree, but, this and this, and you're going to spend all this time, all this money to designing a project, in 5 years, that tree may die. And you could have designed a project to be more efficient in another manner and, plant a little bit bigger tree, and in 5 years, it'll be just as beautiful. So I think coming to the West Concord Advisory Committee is to flush out those issues and concerns and have those conversations. And the applicant hears that and goes, back and does their homework, hires the people to assist them with that. And when they finally do come back with their actual application, it's like, we heard this is what we did. This is, how we address that situation, and this is why. And that's how I see, one of the aspects that the committee can assist, with developers and actually, while it's one extra step for them, it can actually streamline the process down the road. So, so that's my thought on that one.
So I see Nicole has her hand up. I'll go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. So I've been a member almost 3 years of the West Concord Advisory Committee, and I have a question for the planning board in that, have you guys seen the West Concord Master Plan updated matrix that we worked so hard on last year? And have you guys all been able to review it?
I can tell you they were all given it.
I was gonna say, we received it. Yep.
Also part of that.
If you guys reviewed it, you would understand a lot more about what we do. The other thing that we worked on the year prior was the West Concord Design Guidelines, which is separate than Concord Center, which has the historic section, obviously, and the Thoreau District is different, but we have our own design guidelines also that encompass industrial buildings as well as historic sites.
I'm just writing some notes down for myself.
There is a preamble though, that's much shorter, that summarizes that very well.
Thank you. But so you all are trying to decide, you've come to us. Is this helpful? Are what we talking about answering your question or your,
Well, it's helpful in the sense that, I'm taking away that you would like us to go off and think about these things first ourselves and come to you with a proposal for what purpose we could serve. I think Elizabeth can help us a lot with that.
Okay.
And then at least you'll have our take on it based on what we've seen happen over the past few years. And then you can decide if that is useful or, but I do think we should talk to the select board and find out, if they think we need some way of sort of focusing issues around West Concord right now, when everything's happening or threatening to happen.
so nothing's really broken right now. It's just
Necessarily.
anticipating there's gonna be a lot of focus on a lot of stuff going on and
Yeah.
wanting to make sure the roles and responsibilities and the collaboration is clear.
Yeah, and there's some parts of the charge that I think really we could do better. We haven't really, for example, making the community aware of the projects that are coming. Yeah. That's not something that we have the means to do, other than having people log into our meetings. But if they don't, we don't have the role of saying, I think you need a community meeting on this, or there's a lot of confusion about that.
Well, you guys used to have that annual open house where you just, it was a ton of work. It was really great, and the public, it was a great way for the public to come and find everything that's going on once a year. And it got much more press, so people were more likely to come since it was about everything all at once. But I do recognize that that was a lot.
I think it was a lot of work. I think it stopped during the pandemic.
I think
You're
so,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a, yeah.
And
And I would say the charge is a little bit broken already in the sense that technically you're not supposed to go outside the boundaries of the master plan. And yet already MCI Concord one obvious example. And Novo Riverside is a fairly obvious example, and the possible pocket park another, of why that map is just no longer quite correct in its boundaries.
We also just get unsolicited requests and questions for things that are outside of our
Yeah.
charge, if they just come to them, and that we want to help, but.
Well, every committee
It's-
sometimes gets requests that are outside of the charge, and everybody always wants to be helpful, that
Right.
you'll have to figure out, or propose.
Yeah, redirect, things like.
When do you redirect and when do you want to expand the charge to take it out?
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
or they expand the charge to begin with, and then whatever does not fall within the charge has to.
go elsewhere.
Exactly.
Right,
Because, we don't wanna add too much to the workload either, right? It's like when you do review the charge and if whatever changes you do suggest, and if they're approved, we wanna make sure that it's a functional charge, not something that, we don't want people coming about pickleball courts if it's something that, I know people are very interested in pickleball courts, but just throwing that example out there, just it's one project, whereas we have, some major projects coming up that are gonna be hugely impactful, so. On a multitude of levels, not just on noise, but traffic, people, everything, so. Elizabeth, I don't know if there's anything, what do you think is the best, course forward here? I mean, have them review the charge and come back, in a month
Well,
or?
I do think it would be also helpful, maybe you and Anna do meet with Wendy and Paul. So Wendy Rovelli and Paul Bohm, the select board liaisons. And get their feedback, because ultimately it might be currently a planning board subcommittee, but they may also, see the role of West Concord Advisory Committee expanding with everything that's going on, and just being a resource, not just for the planning board. So, and then maybe, then Anna can bring that back to the committee for your next meeting or the meeting after that, however the timing works. And have, a conversation about, the charge and the committee focus, and then the map, or I'm gonna say the area of the committee's influence.
okay.
Well, I'll reach out to you and Wendy and Paul and CC and Elizabeth and see if we can get a time that we can all either meet in person or just get on a call and kind of hash it out for a little bit. So, do the members have any other items?
Lindsay's hand is up.
I didn't see, I'm looking.
Meeting being recorded, okay?
No one's hands up right now. I have the meeting up on here too, just for that reason. So, I think with that, I have to just adjourn your meeting and
Okay, very good, thank you. Thanks.
thank you for all coming. Thank you. All right. Good seeing you guys. All right. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, the definitive subdivision public hearing for 4B Garrison Road and 65X Bedford Street. Sorry. Got the wrong agenda item here. Sheet. Sorry, I'll reread it. In accordance with provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and the Town of Concord subdivision rules and regulations, to review the definitive subdivision plan application of Bentley Building Corp. For improvement of a new roadway and for the creation of two new building lots at 4B Garrison Road and 65X Bedford Street, parcels number 1091-1-5 and 1092. Who's here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Good.
How you doing?
You could introduce yourself. Please.
My name is Paul Kirshner from Sampson McNary. We're the engineers and surveyors for this project. Here with Mark White from Bentley Building Corp, who is the applicant. So I don't know if you want me to refer to a plan, or I can just kind of run through it more quickly and maybe can speak to it in more
Do you have the
detail.
general radar drawings or anything like that to bring up?
Yeah, we can bring those up. Like Elizabeth.
Yep.
Bring those up.
So which plan would you like brought up, Paul?
Could you bring up the plans that we submitted yesterday? We can start with sheet 3, please. Here it is. So this is the existing conditions plan. So
There you go.
subject property consists of 2 parcels. It's 4B Garrison Road. They're very small parcel right off Garrison Road, which let's identify with the cursor right now. The bulk of the site is 65X Bedford Street, and that's where most of the proposed work will occur because that's where the site really opens up. So one of the unique features of this site is that there is estimated habitat of rare wildlife across the majority of the property. So our office and the applicant have been working with Mass Wildlife on what needs to be done in order to permit anything on the site. So after a little bit of back and forth with them, we identified a work area that was acceptable to them. It does involve restricting a large portion of the site from development, which is how we have arrived at our plan, which Elizabeth is scrolling to. Thank you. So what we have is a small scale subdivision, 2 proposed building lots. We have requested a few waivers, which I will speak to more closely in a second. But we have a proposed road coming off of the existing Garrison Road, ending in a T turnaround with 2 dwelling lots at the end there, as you may see on your screen. We have provided drainage naturally to mitigate stormwater runoff resulting from the increased impervious surface. 2 larger subsurface chamber areas, one closer to the existing Garrison Road, the other being towards the rear of the site where the T turnaround is proposed, and each of the lots will be equipped with roof drywalls. These 2 lots will be provided with on-site septic systems and town water. So it may be a little bit difficult to see at this scale here, but we do have proposed restricted area. And I'm going to point the screen a little bit, but not too much. So it really just goes around where we have the proposed work. We can see where the work is proposed. That is the boundary line that will be demarcated with monuments and signage that essentially say this area is restricted. You do not go in here without getting your proper permits first. And that will be tied to the deed for this property. We have had some back and forth with the engineering department and water and sewer. We have addressed those comments. We did submit the most recent revised plan yesterday, so we have not received the final engineering comments. But the last round was relatively minor. So I do not anticipate any major changes being necessary based on any further feedback from the engineering department. In terms of the waivers, the board did see 3 of these back when the preliminary plan for this subdivision was submitted. One being the pavement width, 22 feet is required in Residence B. We are proposing a width of 18 feet with 2-foot gravel shoulders on either side, bringing the total width to 22 feet. Second waiver requested is rather than terminating the road with a cul-de-sac bulb, we are proposing a T turnaround. Both of these waivers we feel are appropriate because of the small scale nature of this subdivision. We have requested a waiver to the construction of sidewalks, the same reason. being that it is only 2 houses that are proposed. The next 2 waivers are new. So Elizabeth, could you please scroll to the next plan sheet? This is a plan and profile, so on the bottom of your screen, you'll see the profile of the proposed roadway. So this does show the existing and proposed grades. One of the directives we received way back when we originally did the preliminary plan for the subdivision is do not let any runoff go into Garrison Road, which is of course always the objective. You don't release stormwater runoff to abutting properties. But we, of course, per that comment, wanted to make sure nothing's going to Garrison Road. So at the front of the property, we have a small dip before we elevate the roadway as we get onto the property. Really, the main reason you want to elevate the roadway is so that you can easily capture the runoff. So in creating that small dip at the front of the road, we do have a reduced vertical curve length. The reason being, if we are to increase that length of that curve, you just need to go deeper before you can come back up. Given the small scale of the subdivision and the fact that you're either stopping before you enter into the existing Garrison Road or turning off of Garrison Road, this reduced curve length we do think is acceptable because you're turning or stopping at that point. And what we have stated in our waiver request is that it is suitable for 20 miles an hour. Very unlikely someone's going 20 miles an hour around this curve. They're going off the road if they are. Last waiver that we requested is the monuments. So monumentation is required around the right of way for all subdivisions. We have the restriction line proposed here because of the habitat. Monuments are required to be installed per Mass Wildlife to define the restriction area. So we have requested waiver to installing additional monuments for the right of way. We just feel that since the property will be so well bounded by the monuments that we are going to be installing anyway, that additional monumentation is repetitive. And these monuments we have proposed certainly are going to be enough for any surveyor to identify property lines down the line. So that's really more of it's a very practical waiver request because we're doing monuments anyway. We just end up installing more monuments 5 feet away. So we felt the waiver was appropriate. The planning department memo did include a couple of waivers that we didn't request, but perhaps we should have. One is related to street lighting, which the memo states the board should discuss. This is small scale. I don't personally feel that lighting is appropriate or necessary, I should say. The other being street trees. We don't have any shown on the plan. Certainly willing to plant them. The last subdivision I did with the board, that was waived. The trees were still required, but where the rules say plant them every 35 to 50 feet, I think is the requirement. The waiver provided flexibility for the developer to, once they've graded the site, determine where does it actually make sense to plant a tree in order to fill in some more sparse areas. So I think it would be appropriate for this subdivision to include such a waiver. So if you want me to go into any further detail on, the design of this or any of the comments, I certainly can.
Actually, I wondered if you could go back to the previous plan page. Sorry, Elizabeth, could you bring that back? Please remind me. I know I understood this before, but I've just forgotten. On the design of the lots, you have the lot boundaries shown there. And then closer in from the lot boundaries, you've got what appears to be like a stone wall, little scallopy bits. Is that the no disturb line? What is that line indicating?
That is the no disturb line. The reason I guess it looks like a stone wall is it's
No,
our-
I know these things get drawn.
It's a tree line type, but then there's
Yeah.
a solid line underneath it, so it looks like one block, but that's really just 2 line types on top of each other. That's just the proposed limit of clearing, which is coincident with the proposed disturbance boundary.
Right, now, at the bottom, there is a fairly steep hill that is going down into the property or,
It's dropping off,
it's dropping off as it goes out of the property.
correct?
Okay, I suspect that a comment will be coming up from the public about a better quality of wildlife corridor at the south end of the property. And I was just wondering whether it might be enhanced by including just a teensy bit of that bottom corner in the no disturb area, but that would, since it's dropping off, it doesn't seem like it would make a whole lot of difference to, the building plan. But I also am not sure and would be advised by someone who knows more than I do about such things, whether it would actually enhance the wildlife corridor at all. Just to, have the boundary track more evenly with the contour lines, or whether that's just irrelevant.
Is this the corner you're talking about down here?
No, the next, go to the left, please.
Right.
That one right there, that
Yeah.
teensy corner. No other portion of it. It's where it gets closest to the property boundary as well.
Mhm.
But again, I mean, I wouldn't want you to have to like go back to natural resources. That would be way too much work for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can also wait until public comment and see if anybody has an opinion on that. Oh, and I do have a question. You mentioned street lighting and the possible waiver. What about, house lighting that you install on the properties themselves? Is that planned to be dark sky compliant? I mean, it's residential, it doesn't have to be. I'm just wondering.
I don't know, Mark, do you know?
Go.
Mark White, Bentley Building Corp., the applicant. Do we take into consideration the abutters and the, well, at this time, dark sky compliant lighting as we do place those, but it's not like we're gonna try to be lighting up the whole lot.
Well,
But, people do
of
like
course
to
not.
light in their backyards. So,
There are, I'm just thinking about, a particular case where an abutter is able to see the lamps of, the front yard lamp to light up the front walk for a property because it's not dark sky compliant.
low voltage lighting, low voltage sidewalk lighting, but we typically put on two exterior lights to light up the front yard as well as the back for security reasons. You know, when you're out in the woods, it's pretty important, or people wanna have that option.
And I can certainly understand that they do. It's just that when the actual, lamp bulb is visible to an abutting property, then it's a lights village issue, but again, you're not legally required to prevent that.
We
It's
can
just-
take all that into consideration.
Thank you.
Could I address the comment about the wildlife corridor as well?
Yeah,
So I mean, there's a whole, this whole area right here
uh-huh,
is gonna be left in its natural state.
right, right.
So I mean, that.
So maybe that extra corner wouldn't make the
I
slightest bit of
see
difference.
how it would, I mean,
I was-
you're already gonna have, you probably have 20 feet there, if not more. That is gonna be left in its natural state.
Yeah, now I wish I knew more about wildlife corridors to know what 20 feet means, but I just don't, so I'm not qualified to comment on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than enough room for, unless you got a herd of buffalo going through there, but I mean, typically what you're seeing going through there is just fox or squirrels or more than enough room for,
They do, after all, go through thin wildlife tunnels.
I mean, if you notice all the paths, if you walk the site, you'll see very narrow paths where the deers go through and so forth, so more than ample space for, even right through here, if they chose to go that way.
That's what I was gonna ask. What is on the list of wildlife that goes through there?
So for the endangered species,
Yeah.
it's the
what-
Blandings turtle.
Okay, so turtle and deer and the coyotes back there, the bears back there,
I
or?
haven't seen any bear, but I'm sure there are coyotes.
Okay.
I'm sure there's fox and, whatever's native to Concord.
Yeah, I don't think they'll have a problem back there.
It's,
Yeah, okay.
like I say, I know it was a comment brought up by the public, but that's a pretty wide corridor right
Yeah,
there.
I know, there's no corridors in my backyard and the deer just come up and eat everything.
Keep in mind, once we're finished, that fence is gonna come down, that's a turtle protection fence, so they're also gonna have the backyards to go through.
Elizabeth has her hand up.
To the, Sue's comment about the lighting, similar to, a, I think it's in Christine's planner's report that, any post lights that are proposed that is within the road right of way, shall be dark sky compliant. But that is something that the planning board can, require.
Well, I certainly hope we would, but people like post lights that are outside of the road right of way as well. And that's what I was wondering about, but we can't require that. I've just raised it out of sheer hopefulness.
Well, but you have to understand with how this plan is laid out. You know, their driveways are basically starting in, you know, towards the middle of so all of this is within the road right of way.
Well, that's a good point, yes, because it's a cul-de-sac. Yes, thank you for pointing that out, Elizabeth.
Do any other members of the board have any other questions for the applicant?
Well, I'm waiting to hear engineering, dot the i's and cross the t's on those last few little things, but they did seem pretty straightforward to me.
No, here, hold on.
What I can tell you is the last comment letter from engineering basically conditioned their review. And those have been included in the planner's report. So if this last round of plans addresses those comments, should the board move forward with a positive decision, those conditions are already in there. So they would just be satisfying the conditions early.
The only one I remember as outstanding really was, engineering said, well, it has to be set up for 25 miles per hour. And the applicant pointed out how that really isn't necessary in this case. But engineering should either say, well, yeah, okay, and maybe condition something, or they would have the opportunity to say, no, that's really not adequate.
So I turn that over to Paul. I think these revised plans do address that concern.
Yeah, so there's more in the substance of our response to the comment, but most of the roadway is suitable for 25 miles an hour. It's really just that front portion. It's just a small dip to ensure the road runoff is captured. And that is what I discussed with Justin Richardson, the assistant town engineer, you know, on this comment, 'cause I called him about it. I haven't received a response, obviously, but I believe, you know, the response that we provided is consistent with what they're expecting. My understanding is really what engineering is looking for is, yes, it's designed for 25 miles an hour. I can say with this exception in this front portion of the roadway, but we have provided the explanation.
Well, and that makes perfect sense to me. It's just I'm not a road engineer and I'm waiting for Justin to say, yeah, that's all. But I'm expecting he will. I'm just saying that due diligence of the planning board is to make sure that engineering is really okay.
Yeah.
As we expect.
Anyone else? Abby, you have any comment?
No, I apologize for being muted and camera off. I have a terrible cold and no one needs to watch me blow my nose for an hour and a half, but I am listening and no, I think Sue did a great job of kind of she drilled down on some of the same concerns that I had. So I'm comfortable with what we've discussed thus far.
Open it up to, there she goes. Open up to public comment.
Hi, Mark Bayless, I live at 62 Prescott Road in Butter. So I'm gonna make a few comments and some of it, you know, is to the board and some is, and just basically request me to the developer, take the opportunity to do that. So, yeah, my wife Tanya and I submitted some written comments, and I believe those were passed on also to the developer and the team, and I appreciate their looking at that, and you know, we do value the wildlife there. It's a wide variety, a lot of birds, as well as the animals that were mentioned, and the habitats kind of interact, biodiversity needs to be preserved. So as far as the wildlife corridor goes, you know, whatever can be done in terms of landscaping, fine, you know, treatment, et cetera, to minimize impacts at that periphery, because obviously you're preserving a lot of habitat on the Monson Road side, and that's much appreciated. But to whatever extent small decisions can be made on the Prescott Road side, that's very much appreciated. We also support the idea of a waiver for any kind of required street lighting. The less lighting, the better, I think, for the wildlife and for the abutters. Even though the board cannot require you know, restrictions to lighting the front yards or backyards, et cetera. Nonetheless, it would be appreciated if in the installation of lighting, an effort is made to say, okay, this is what's required to cover the area of the property that needs to be covered, and there won't be like distant spill going out horizontally 500 feet. That would be much appreciated, because that does happen, and it's already happened in certain places. I've been reassured that all the runoff in, you know, rain runoff is being infiltrated on the property and not going to butters, and I appreciate that, you know, attention, which is both developer, his engineering firm, and the town. So I think that's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have a person online? Tanya?
Yes,
Yes.
hi. Yeah, so Tanya Galis, it's Mark's wife. Also reiterating the comment and explaining about the wildlife corridor part, that we keep our yard wild, as the letter said, and we care for all the animals that to have access to it like they did before. So it doesn't matter what species they are or aren't, whether they are endangered or not. We just want as little wildlife disturbance as possible. And as abutters, that's our request and preference. Other people might have different preferences, but that's what we did request. And I am assuming that the planning board is I was just a little surprised that a new plan was submitted only yesterday. And I have not, you know, studied the plans, and that's not really my area of extra knowledge or anything like that. So but it's just a little surprising that there were last minute revisions, and I don't know if other abutters would have concerns about that or not. So yeah, and thank you to Ms. Felshen for bringing up our concerns that we expressed in our letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scales. Do we have any other comment in the room? No. So, I think, Elizabeth, the next step would probably be to put this to a vote, correct?
So two things to Ms. Galis's comment. I think Paul can just quickly run through the minor differences between the previous plan and the plan that was submitted yesterday. They are, you know, very minor, dealing with, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, deals with a pipe size, deals with an incorrect note on the plan. And Paul can list a couple of the other things. But should the board wish to move forward and grant this decision, To Sue's comment, you can, incorporate a condition regarding engineering's issue or concern that they raised regarding the speed, 25-mile-per-hour speed, and should engineering need, request additional provisions that those changes to the plan can be made. And I don't know which condition number it is, but there's usually always a condition that prior to endorsement of the plan, certain, different items need to be incorporated into the plan. You can add that to that condition as well.
That reminds me, there was also the waiver of the monuments, and it sounds very reasonable to me, but again, I would like to hear that engineering is okay with that before I would sign off on them.
We could add both too.
Right,
No.
exactly. I could
So-
also-
So monuments would not, engineering is not going to comment on
Oh, okay.
monuments.
Does anybody, do you, Elizabeth?
So I can, generally, monuments are placed at, the different, lot corners for a lot. So a property owner, understands where their lot boundaries are. And the requested waiver is, because of natural heritage, is they will also have to put, monuments, and it might be easier if I just show you. They will be required to put monuments at the edge, the limit of the restriction area. So taking lot 2, for example, there'll be a monument at this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner down here, up here, and all along this line. So literally, like, there's going to be a monument here, and then 2 feet away would be a monument here, a monument here. What I would probably recommend is the monuments that define around the road right of way. There doesn't need to be, I don't think, monuments defining, this edge of the road right of way. But it may be good to at least mark, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those 5 corners. And then the rest of the monuments. Because the requirement is for, every change in direction. So, there would be 1 here, 1, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, here, here. So I do think that is excessive.
I'm not really seeing.
We're not. Cursor, it's a little.
But hold on, how about if we say it this way? We can write up a more complex waiver that states that, and when I say we, of course, I mean you, Elizabeth, sorry.
Yeah, I do think, so is this better? Can you see my cursor now?
Yeah, now I can see your cursor.
Yeah. So because of this, the restriction of natural heritage, they'll put a monument here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 down here. And so like this one, there's going to be a monument here, and about, 5 feet away is going to would literally be another monument. So I do think maybe marking, these prominent corners just to define the edge of their lot. So it would be 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But then they're going to have to put monuments at each one of these corners for the habitat restriction, conservation restriction area. So I do think it's a valid waiver request, and I would probably incorporate in, I think it's condition, I don't know, Christine, if you can look at whether it's like 3, 4, but that prior to endorsement of the plan, that, you know, five monument, you know, lot corners for lot 1 and 2 be inserted, and then the rest will actually be the restriction line.
Are those monuments at ground level?
They, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, I think they stick up a few inches.
Yeah,
The property boundary monuments.
Right,
The conservation restriction ones, you know, they usually stick up also a few inches and then also have a monument, a metal tag on the top.
yeah, these ones won't have the metal tag, but there will be signage along the line, say this area is restricted. I don't have that exact language, but, yeah, the restriction line markers will stick up more than the property line markers. They'll be very apparent. It'll be clear.
So Mark, do you want to go first and then Paul can go into the details after
I
the
just think
changes?
there's a little clarity to the request for that waiver. If we could go back to that sheet that we were just at. The request for the waiver is so that nobody gets confused as to where the limit of disturbance is. So if we're showing a marker here and then a marker out here, one of the residents could easily come in and say, well, I thought this was the limit of disturbance. Whereas if it's made very clear in the description and the deeds that the stone bounds are the limit of disturbance, there can never be any valid excuse as to why they went beyond. I mean, a lot of times you'll say people, oh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was out there by that stone bound. So if I'm putting a stone bound here and a stone bound out here, a consumer or a homeowner could easily say, I didn't realize that.
Well, they're
So-
different stone bounds. I don't know, Elizabeth, what do you think about that though? Cause you were recommending, having the lot bounds anyway.
I think it's a valid concern.
Okay.
As Paul had mentioned, that the stone bounds, is gonna be enough monumentation there for any surveyor to come in and get any control they need to do any layout. I think if you start putting stone bounds along the turtle barrier and then stone bounds around the property line, to me, you're raising the opportunity for someone to not understand which bound is the boundary line.
So does
But if
that
you have one
change,
set,
does that change your recommendation, Elizabeth, or what?
It's a valid concern. You know, definitely. I would, you know, and, you know, that's, I can see that definitely happening, like on this side, especially for, you know, this house. You know, them thinking that, you know, they can do something in this area. I would probably, still recommend that, you know, there's gonna probably be one bound, you know, down in this corner and up here, just so that they
Which corner we're
understand.
having trouble
Yeah.
seeing again.
Oh, I would probably include one here and up here, just so that the two residents clearly know, you know, where this property line is. But no, I can definitely see Mark's concern. Over on this side,
Second.
on lot 2,
Yeah,
yeah, I can see that being an area where, just given the proximity of this limit of disturbance, that somebody may see this bound over here and think that's,
That's the survey peg.
so it sounds like you're recommending just one extra monument along the no disturb line between lot 1 and lot 2 and
and then
skipping
one,
all the
Yep.
others.
and then one at, well, and one at the top.
Top left?
between
No.
the two lots.
No, between 1 and 2.
Oh, between the two
Between one
lots,
and-
one there and one there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because, yes. Got it.
You good with that
I'm
explanation?
good with that
Okay.
explanation.
Mr. Gales, you had your,
Oh, I was just gonna, just for clarity to the public, could somebody point out one example of whether you're talking about having the monuments on the outer perimeter, essentially the inner perimeter of the parcel A, or versus the other? I mean, if I could have an example of one versus the other, because I couldn't see any of the marks that Elizabeth brought up.
so.
Yep.
So-
If you appreciate it.
So what we're proposing is a stone marker here, so it'd be in the turtle demarcation area.
Okay.
So it's inside of the lots, so we're talking one here, it'd be another one here. We got it.
But is that
It's just on the plan
Yeah,
at the
it's right
bottom.
down here, so it would be it would be inside of the lots,
okay?
so the lot lines would be outside of where the bounds are.
The MIPA bound or
I'm sorry,
is it,
it's a stone bound.
but who determines, I mean, I understand the lot boundaries. Lots, and I understand the parcel A as another lot essentially, but that seems like yet a third boundary, am I right?
Well, it's a boundary that's set up by natural heritage.
Okay,
So,
it's there, I
so it's not like I can come out and say, well, I don't like the location of that boundary, I'm gonna move it over here. It's a fixed point.
Okay, so it goes back to the original explanation, which I thought was very clear, which was MIPA is requiring these. We don't need to add ones within 5 feet of those.
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Steve Powell, 69 Monson Road. I'd like to ask you for some examples of the definition of disturbance with regard to the property, the protected area. What type of disturbances are you saying, like trash in there or debris?
Or do you mean like, does walking in there count as disturbance or dumping a leaf pile? Those are the kinds of questions you're
Well,
asking?
not necessarily people walk through that area all the time. But what can you put back there?
Can't really put
If
anything.
somebody
You can put anything
blowing
back there.
leaves. and
You can't put
blowing
a
leaves in
fence,
there.
you can't put anything.
Yeah, you can't put,
You can't dig any.
oil, you can't do any of that,
I mean,
but,
it's not the abutter's property to be putting these back there.
Okay, all right.
So my understanding is that there's really, other than walking on it, there's no disturbance that's allowed. You can't come in and put in a vegetable garden or.
Clear a
Okay,
path.
That's supposed to be left in its natural state.
Okay,
And then anytime I've been involved with these, which is probably my third or fourth one with natural heritage, it gets left in its natural state.
okay, just curious. Now, and what we had talked about earlier about the equipment that's left in the back of the,
That's gonna be pulled out once we get out of the turtle mating season.
okay, all right,
The reason it's still there is because of that reason.
okay.
is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so back to you, Paul, could you, there was a few, you want to point out the differences between the plans if you were,
Yeah, absolutely. So one comment we already discussed, that's the roadway design speed. There is a comment regarding condition that this road remain private. And we did add a note to the record plan, which is sheet 2 of the plan set, saying that it will remain private, no obligation placed on the town.
That includes the snow removal and.
Corrected. Engineer made a comment about soil testing. I think we just had a verbal miscommunication about, did the town see this? Yes, town witnessed all soil testing for the septic and the drainage. So that was just a point of clarification, really. Really, a lot of these other comments, well, I'll start with the easy one first, the area drains. So the drainage system is a few different swales with area drains off the side of the road, beehive grade, so that runoff can run off the pavement into a ditch, get to an area drain. engineering recommended that we lift up those grates 2 inches so that for low intensity storms where it's just a little bit of runoff, it can pond around the area drain a little bit and seep into the ground there rather than conveying it to the larger system. We made that change. I know we did that at Sunnyside, Mark did that at Sunnyside, if you're familiar with that subdivision
That's why
project.
it does that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Realistically, that's most storm events. It's low intensity, but it's only slightly elevated. So once it backs up, it'll get to our infiltration system. And then there's a few different comments to this point, but the remainder of the comments relate to the overflow pipe for the subsurface chambers. So both of these chamber systems, as well as roof drywalls, are designed for the 100-year design storm. They will not overflow unless we see a storm event that exceeds the 100-year design storm. Engineering's comments for that, you still need an overflow pipe. The chamber system in the front, we had previously proposed an area drain grate so that rather than your conventional pipe outlet, the intent was for if the system fills up, water bubbles out of the ground through a separate grate. We had a little bit of disagreement over that's not quite enough what we were doing. The system in the rear, whereas we had designed our overflow so that the runoff would essentially, go into our area drain and take a left to go to the chamber system. And if that backed up, take a right. That's how I like to think about it. Engineering disagreed that we are providing a separate defined overflow. So in both cases, we've just added an extra pipe to connect it, to get it out to the same place where we are always proposing an overflow for that rear chamber system. So it's up to the 100-year design storm. Of course, you hear a lot more talk about 100-year storms happening now than you used to. But these are really high intensity storm events where this would ever be overflowing. So we really just added more piping, but the actual function of the system during normal periods of rainfall will be the same as it was from the first plan we submitted. So.
But it meets what engineering wanted you to do.
Yes. Yeah. And this was another thing that Justin and I discussed. So we talked about it for quite a bit. So I am confident that this is what, they're expecting. We just haven't gotten that letter back yet.
Okay.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions before? Okay, I don't see any other public comment here, so I think we're gonna need a couple of items addressed with this, so.
So where are we at? Are we trying to vote a motion that has a whole bunch of contingencies required in it? Or are we asking Elizabeth to draft a decision that we vote on after seeing the conditions all written up?
And do we have to wait for anything to come back to us?
Well, I would only vote approval contingent on engineering dotting those i's and
Mhm.
crossing those t's,
Yeah.
and Elizabeth writing up the language about
Right.
exactly where those monuments would be, but those are pretty straightforward, and this is why I'm asking the question.
Elizabeth, what would be the cleanest way to do this? Would it be waiting to draft that letter, or we wanna put a motion forward with those items within it?
So the board does need to go through the list of waivers. And because there were, like the street lighting, and I think in Christine's report, it spells it out pretty well. And then her report, she's also listed draft conditions, and we can modify the one condition regarding the plans to address engineering's design speed concern and the monuments. So it's entirely up to the board whether you want an actual draft decision to review at your next meeting, or whether you want to go through the waivers in the report and, you know, accept the report as your decision with those waivers and the added 2 conditions.
And so why we wouldn't do the latter, but I may be missing something. Since I still feel new to this committee. No, that's good.
No, not anymore. I mean, I'm fine with going through the waivers and, you know, so we're not, you know, holding things up a bit
Yeah.
more, you know, at this point, I think. You know, the applicant has satisfied the majority of the concerns, you know. Has addressed a lot of the public concerns, so I'm comfortable with going over the waivers. I just want to see what, you know, if we want to go down that route or what the rest of the board wants to do, you know.
I wouldn't mind going through the waivers.
Yeah, I'm
comfortable
okay
with
with
Okay,
proceeding with that,
Yeah.
as long as, you know, if we write up the conditions properly, it works for me to go right ahead.
okay, so I'll go over each one. Okay,
So in going over each one, is that gonna be part of the motion? The motion is that we're going to accept this.
with
The
Given
waivers
the
as
following,
described in the
yeah,
planner
okay.
report,
report,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
that'll just condense things, so we don't have to go over each way, whoever's putting the motion forward doesn't have to list each of the waivers.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll go over section number 1, section 6.8, street design, table 1A, minimum pavement width. The minimum pavement width in residence B is 22 feet in order to minimize impervious area impact, and because the road will only service 2 single-family dwellings, a pavement width of 18 feet has been proposed. 2-foot wide shoulders are proposed on each side of the roadway, providing a total width of 22 feet. The board we stated in our last meeting that we were supporting this waiver through the preliminary subdivision plan approval, finding that the new subdivision road will only serve 2 houses, that a reduced pavement width allows for a reduction in impervious surface, a decrease in the amount of stormwater drainage runoff, and further limits the disturbance towards the habitat of rare wildlife. The board found that a waiver is in the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the subdivision control law. Does anyone have any concerns with that waiver? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Section 6.8, street design. We'll need to fix the table. Yep, I know, I was gonna say it. You beat me to it.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It's all good. Cul-de-sac 65X Bedford Street is an undeveloped lot with no established right of way. Only 2 building lots are proposed to be created by the subdivision. A T turnaround is proposed in lieu of a cul-de-sac in order to minimize the area of pavement. The turnaround does not meet the subdivision standards as required under section 6.8.1, table 1A. However, the turnaround is designed to accommodate the current fire truck standards. So the board stated it is in support of this waiver through the preliminary subdivision plan approval, finding that the T turnaround accommodates the current fire truck standards and allows for less impervious surface, reduced stormwater drainage runoff, and limits the disturbance towards the habitat of rare wildlife, excuse me. The board found a waiver is in the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the subdivision control law. Does anyone have any concern with that waiver?
Oh, you know, non-parallel conjunction, but I have no problem with the waiver.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next one. Need to break it up a little bit here with this. Section 6.10, sidewalks. All local streets are required to have a sidewalk along one side of the street. The vehicular and pedestrian traffic volumes on a 2-lot subdivision are not significant enough to warrant the need for a sidewalk. The board stated it is in support of this waiver through the preliminary subdivision plan approval, finding that the road only serves 2 homes, and by not requiring a sidewalk, there is a reduction in stormwater drainage runoff and further limits the disturbance towards the habitat of rare wildlife. The board found that a waiver is in the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of the subdivision control law. Does
period at end of sentence control law.
Thank you. Does anyone have any concerns with that waiver? Okay, I just gotta keep an eye on Miss Abby, sorry. Referring to 6.8 street design standards and 6.8.1 table 1A, the minimum length of the vertical curve is 100 feet or 20 feet for each algebraic difference in grade. In order to ensure that all stormwater runoff from the roadway can be collected by the proposed drainage system, a 30-foot long sag vertical curve is proposed at the beginning of the subdivision roadway. The sag vertical curve is proposed to transition from a negative 1.1% slope to a positive 1.35% slope. An increase in the length of the curve will require the roadway to be sloped downward for a longer run, lowering the roadway and thereby increasing the volume of earth cut required to construct the road. The proposed sag vertical curve is suitable for a 20-mile-an-hour travel speed, which is faster than is likely necessary given the curve is proposed near the intersection where exiting vehicles will be at or approaching a stop sign, and entering vehicles will be navigating a turn onto the roadway. A waiver is requested, so we need to discuss this waiver. Does anyone have any concerns, or are we okay with this waiver?
I'm okay with it contingent upon engineering
Yeah.
being okay with it. Yeah.
Okay, so everyone fine with that language? Okay. Okay, referring to 6.11 monuments. Monuments are required at all at street intersections at all points of change in direction of curvature of street at two property corners and at other points determined to be necessary in the opinion of the planning board. Monuments are not proposed along the right of way because monuments will be installed per the restriction line that is required by the Mass Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. A waiver is requested. So we will approve this based on a waiver from.
Well-
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna.
Based on the way Elizabeth phrased it?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Did you want me to type this now?
I think we're fine with,
Oh, good.
We trust you.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. A second, I need to drink the water here. Okay. So the last waivers were, section 6.19, street lighting provisions shall be made for street lighting connections at locations as determined by CMLP. No street lighting is proposed for the subdivision. The plans do not show any street lighting. The board should discuss this, whether this waiver is appropriate and the public interest and not inconsistent with the intent and purpose of this subdivision control law. Go ahead.
I have a question for Elizabeth. So, this is a waiver from being required to provide street lighting. Now, no street lighting is currently shown on the plans. If we grant this waiver, since it is connected to the plans, does that mean they can't then voluntarily add street lighting? Because then they would have to come back for some new reapproval of plans that showed it? Just checking.
Never actually had a project where somebody was granted a waiver for streetlights and then came back later and put in streetlights. So if because it's not a public road, if they did want to put streetlights, then yes, I would think they would have to come back and modify the subdivision plan.
Well, then I'm fine with the waiver personally.
Does anyone have any concern with that?
Nope.
Okay. No. All right. Section 6.17, street trees. Street trees shall be planted within the right of way between the area designated for sidewalks and the sideline of the street pavement and shall be spaced at intervals of approximately 50 feet on center, but no closer than 35 feet. The plans do not show any street trees, so this is one thing we should discuss here, with how we want to word this waiver here.
I would want it to be worded in some way that requires the correct number of trees to be planted, but waiving the distances between them. But what about this no closer than 35 feet? Should we say anything about no closer than any number of feet? Or just say must have this many trees and you pick where?
So that's consistent what the board did with 1053 Main Street.
We could
It's-
just use the same wording, right?
Yes, so the board granted a waiver to the required spacing interval for the planting of the trees and to allow them to be planted in, appropriate locations, within the development. They did not grant a waiver to the number of trees, but they granted a waiver to the spacing interval requirement.
I seem to recall that decision had perfectly sensible wording in it. That
Yep.
I would be fine with just copying and pasting into here.
That's probably what we'll do.
Mark White, Bentley Building Corp. I'd just like to add, is that possible that where this is such a tight area because the turtle restrictions, could those be placed on adjacent lots? Or the abutters lots, similar to what we did as Sunnyside?
I don't have an issue. I don't see an issue with that at all.
I just think.
I think we just tied to the number of trees, and
Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
that's the way we go.
Number of trees.
Does anyone have any concerns or comments with that from the board? Should check Abigail, sorry, because reading it,
Coughing her lungs out.
probably, but
Thumbs up.
she's good. I can't even, I'm like, okay, thumbs up. Okay, she's good. All right, so I think I think we're good there, right, Elizabeth, at this point?
Yes.
All right, so can I get a motion?
I don't have it, the memo and the agenda in front of me, but
Yeah.
I move that we,
Here it is.
wait a second, no, but with respect to, the application for 4B Garrison Road and 65X Bedford Street, I move that the planning board approve the application with the conditions described in the planner's report and as modified by discussion at this meeting.
Can I get a second for this motion?
Second.
All right, since we are hybrid today, can I get, I'm gonna go to roll call. Alan,
Great.
Greg,
Great.
aye.
Aye.
Sue, Abby,
Aye.
and myself is yes. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item. So, in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81T, and the Town of Concord subdivision rules and regulations, to review the definitive subdivision plan application of 874 Barrett's Mill Road LLC for improvement of a new roadway and for the creation of 4 new building lots at 874 Barrett's Mill Road, parcel number 1994. So the applicant has requested a continuance without discussion for December 9th, 2025 meeting. So could I get a motion to continue this to the 9th of December?
I move we continue this to the 9th of December.
Could I get a
Also,
second?
you also need to accept the time extension to December 12th.
And accept the time extension to
Thank you.
December 12th.
Thanks.
Second.
Okay, then we'll go roll call vote. Abby,
Aye.
Sue,
I,
Pat,
Yes,
Greg,
Aye.
Alan,
Yes.
and myself is yes. So moving on to administrative business, public comment. General public comment is limited to 15 minutes with no more than 3 minutes allocated to any one speaker. General public comment is limited to items that are not on the agenda. We have no one in the room. Does anyone online have any public comment? Ms. Savoy?
Yes, Carol Savoy, 61 Belknap Street. I just had a general question in regards to the personal wireless communication overlay district and the subdivision rules and regulations. I know that they were on the planning board's goals and projects for, I guess, this year and next. And I wanted to understand if you would be still talking about them this year, and were you planning on bringing them forward to 2026 town meeting with a warrant?
I can provide an update, Rob.
Yeah.
So the request for proposals for the consultant for the subdivision rules and regs, that went out. We got 2 responses. The interview team interviewed both consultants. A selection and an award has been made for BSC Group, and we are currently finalizing the contract through the finance department so that they can get started. That will be a 6 to 9 month process before the planning board holds a public hearing to adopt new subdivision rules and regs. The wireless overlay district, currently waiting for a memo from town council, who is going through the current bylaw and looking at the current bylaw along with different state, federal regulations and requirements and decisions from the court, and preparing a memo to the board outlining different sections of the bylaw that should be reviewed and addressed. That is, hopefully hope to have that memo for the next meeting. Whether the board moves forward with a warrant article, I don't know.
Ms. Savoy, is that, any other comment or?
No, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I thought somebody was saying something in the background. I was waiting for them to finish.
Yeah, I thought I heard somebody talking.
We
to
have
me.
people in the hall still.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. No, that's great. Thank you for that update, Elizabeth.
Okay. Well, we can't close the door.
Yeah, we can't close the door.
We can't close the door.
it's a public meeting, you're not allowed, but I will shoot them down the hall.
One moment, everyone.
Thank you.
Politely, some people have.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think we have any other public comment. Moving on to the next item of our administrative business. The potential mixed-use zoning bylaw amendment warrant article discussion. So we have in our packet the updated draft bylaw with the explanations and edits that Sue had put together. This revised version has been shared again with a few local developers, the various housing groups and RHSO for their comment, which we won't likely have until next month. So the board's consultants also reviewing the explanation as well. Does anyone have any comment? Have you had a chance to look at it? So Elizabeth,
The only reason I brought this forward to the board, because you are going to be getting a lot of input over the next few weeks, hopefully. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to synthesize all of that in time for your meeting in November, but that's my goal. But the one item that I would like direction from is, the current working draft does not include a waiver provision. in the current bylaw, there is a waiver provision for if somebody provides more than the required open space, they can request a waiver from the Board of Appeals as part of a special permit to reduce the open space, increase the height from 35 feet to 40 feet, or decrease the number of parking spaces, so long as the Board of Appeals finds the project is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the section and will not be detrimental or injurious to the neighborhood. So I didn't know if the board wanted me to kind of, put forth, a similar type of waiver provision that people can kind of start to discuss or not. I don't expect you to develop that tonight. I'll present a draft, but if that's something that the board does want to look at and discuss at another meeting.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want that? Well, there's a constant tension of the less you allow, the easier it is to get people to vote less, but on the other hand, then people are sorry later because it turns into sprawl someplace else.
And I mean, a lot of these projects, when they do, they'll come before. They'll still come before us, right, Elizabeth?
Yes.
So, I mean, we'll have, we'll have ample opportunity if we get, if we have a project where they're trying to get the waiver, where they're going higher. Public feedback will be there if, they feel like this is not, gonna fit within that, neighborhood, wherever it is.
Shouldn't
So-
each one be taken on its own basis and not group them all together?
Well, they will be, each project's gonna have to.
And if somebody asked for a waiver on all three of those grounds, each one would be taken up separately. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
my first instinct is that I do think the current draft, as far as it relates to open space, it is more, more in line with something that can actually be built and be usable, and allowing a waiver to that may not necessarily, be something that, people want to think about, but the flip side to that is you kind of don't know until you have a site and you have a project, and maybe a project wants to have some other public type of amenity and they're 20 square feet short. So I just it is a special permit process. It is discretionary. It's it's not by right. So I think sometimes when you have a little bit of flexibility as far as how a project can be designed, that's sometimes helpful. Previously, the waiver provision allowed going from 35 feet to 40 feet. 5 feet is not significant, but it may help in the architectural design of a building, as far as if you have a business on the first floor and you want to have 10-foot ceilings or 12-foot ceilings, it still would allow 2 floors of residential, and that 5 feet can make a difference inside the building. It doesn't make a 5 feet, nobody, it doesn't make a remarkable difference on exterior of the building, but it may allow some flexibility. And then I think as far as the parking waiver, there currently is relief from parking that can be granted a waiver, to the parking is something that has, it's part of the bylaw already. And the couple of projects that have come forward, like Concord Outfitters, that was granted. They went from 2 spaces per unit down to 1.5. So, and it made a difference where the project is. So, I think it's a good tool to help have better projects potentially designed. So instead of making something by right, I think a special permit provision, since it's discretionary, allows for that flexibility and that conversation during a public hearing.
With open space, I mean, what if somebody wanted to provide, instead of what we're asking for, 24 square feet, 22 square feet per unit, and there's a public park literally next door? I like that kind of flexibility to squeeze out a little less open space, but only if there's a good reason. And the height, like Elizabeth says, 5 feet isn't that much. But on the other hand, if it's abutting a residential district where it's already 35 feet, a waiver would give the board a possibility to say, well, okay, you can go up to 40 feet, but maybe we wouldn't let you do it right on the property line. Well, there's a setback anyway, but that's nice flexibility. If it's a larger property especially, why not?
So
Have-
I think, from
then-
my experience with the Board of Appeals, I think if there is a little bit more defined, criteria for the granting of the waiver, I do know the Board of Appeals has a challenging time making findings based on whether a waiver is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the section. That
I would
that
be
doesn't
fine
provide,
pulling out a little more.
yeah,
You
that
know, giving
doesn't
some
provide a lot of direction. So I do think there is room to help frame the waiver requests and assist the Board of Appeals in reviewing those requests better.
I think we could write up some suggested conditions under which, or examples under which waivers would be particularly appropriate. Like for open space, if there is offsetting purposes or nearby open space, and for building height, if it is not directly abutting
Or impacting.
a residential neighborhood within N feet.
All right, so I'll try and think about that, and we can get examples. There's lots of examples in other communities, so Christine and I'll look into that and try and draft something for the board.
And just to check, I think you said for parking, it's completely unnecessary because people can already separately apply for relief from parking. So there's no need to give a parking waiver within the specific section, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so why complicate the law with an extra provision for no reason?
Everyone good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. We'll move on to the next potential lighting
Oh,
bylaw.
we have a public comment.
Oh, we have public, Carol.
Carol Savoy, 61 Belknap Street. My public comment is I fully support Concord's goals of walkable, vibrant village centers, thriving businesses, and more affordable housing, but this zoning amendment is not the right timing or approach. It opens the door to large-scale mixed-use projects before we answered major questions. We don't yet know where police, fire, DPW, or town offices will be consolidated. Meanwhile, multiple 40B developments and potential MBTA community zoning and MCI Concord site will already add hundreds, if not thousands, of units. We don't know the full impact on schools, traffic, water, sewer, or parking. Some specific concerns are affordability. Raising the threshold to 10 units lets developers avoid affordable housing entirely on smaller projects. Open space. Dropping from twice the residential floor area to 20% of the lot, counting balconies or rooftops, gives residents almost no usable green space. Density and parking. Rear buildings plus reduced parking and expanded joint parking relief increases bulk and strains streets. Ground floor commercial. 30-foot depth is too shallow to support real shops or restaurants. 40 to 50 feet minimum, covering half the footprint, would be more realistic. Oversight. Design guidelines with simple majority approval weaken protections and reduce public input. Instead of rushing new mixed-use zoning, we should focus on cost-effectively revitalizing existing spaces, improving signage, lighting, walkability, outdoor gathering areas, landscaping, and seating to truly support small business and village life. In short, this amendment would mean less affordability, less open space, more bulk, weaker parking protections, and looser oversight, all before critical land use decisions are made. Please pause this amendment until we've updated the comprehensive plan, completed the land use working group municipal facility study, and fully evaluated the effects of the 240Bs and potential MBTA and MCI projects. Only then we should consider mixed-use zoning of this scale. Thank you.
We'll take your comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, moving on to, does anyone know other public comments? No. You still.
I have a
this
few
was-
more things that I'd like to add if I could.
Okay, can I have another couple minutes?
Sure. I wanted to mention, when you read through the explanation, it doesn't really anywhere define like what areas of town this focuses on. I know there's a bunch of abbreviations in the table. So, but I don't think most people understand that. And I think it would be really helpful if in your explanation, you said something to the effect of this amendment would apply to the following business districts and then list them, like WCV equals West Concord Village and so forth. And particularly the limited business, like nobody knows where they are. So like limited business 2 is 59 Walden, limited business 3 is 22 and 34 Monument, plus 27, 33, 37 Bedford Street, etc. So they understand that it covers, you know, multiple village centers and commercial corridors across town. So I think you need to define that somewhere, if not in the warrant article, at least in the explanation. Because if you read it right now, it's confusing because the only thing that's called out is the Thoreau Crosby's area, but it's as meaning that it applies to the vision plan. But I think it confuses people because I don't think they think it's going to apply to anywhere else. So that's the first clarification I would suggest you make. The second one, I just wanted to point out in the explanation, it says the current law is financially infeasible. And that's not correct. The issue is mathematical, not financial, and there is a difference. When you apply the 20% affordability to a small project like 4 units, 20% equals 0.8 of a unit, and that rounds up to 1 unit, which is 25%. But that's not financially impossible. It's just arithmetic. The right fix is to clarify the rounding and allow payment in lieu for fractions below 0.5. I would strongly encourage the board to keep the 20% affordability requirement, even for smaller projects under 10 units with logical rounding rules. For example, 4 units times 20% equals 0.8 equals 1 affordable unit. 3 units times 20% equals 0.6 equals 1 affordable unit. And 2 units times 20% equals 0.4 equals payment in lieu. That approach is fair, predictable, and consistent with Concord's values. The explanation also cites the MBTA Community's Economic Feasibility Study as justification for limiting affordability to projects of 10 or more units. That's misleading. The study didn't find smaller projects infeasible, it simply didn't model them. The consultants began at 10 units because that's what the MBTA compliance threshold. There's no evidence that projects under 10 units can't support 20% affordability, especially with payment in lieu options. I urge the board to correct the explanation, make clear that the change addresses a mathematical rounding issue, not a financial one, and to keep the 20% affordable requirement for projects under 10 units with payment in lieu provisions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take, look at the, adding the explanation of the districts when we do present the warrant article, and then we'll take, look at the, comments regarding the fractional units and affordability into consideration. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 3. I think we're good there, so I just want to check one time. Potential lighting bylaw warrant article discussion. So we have in our packet, the discussion is the updated memo for the potential lighting bylaw, and it includes edits and questions that Sue had put together. So
Yeah, so the memo that was included is kind of just supposed to be a jumping off point for the planning board to see if we want to consider bringing forward a potential bylaw amendment for 2026 annual town meeting. And so in the draft, language includes some definitions included from mostly from the Dark Sky, Massachusetts, their contemporary lighting bylaw, but also some other sources were used just for clarity, and Sue helped clarify further. As well as applicability, the administration, and general requirements, and then also some discussion items for the board to consider if this is something the board wants to move forward with. And I can pull it up on the screen too.
we go with pulling it up.
Mhm.
Okay. If you could, please.
Oh, Elizabeth, could you actually pull it up?
Let's see that.
Is that good?
I think most of us can read it.
Oh, I don't want to make it bigger.
I think we're good. Pat has a printed copy to look at.
Yeah, I've got a paper copy.
So I guess for you guys, what, if you've had a chance to review this, what were some areas you wanted to potentially discuss or clarify or things like that?
I guess one thing I would like to see in there under definitions
Yeah.
is the word temporary.
Okay.
What is the definition of temporary? Are Christmas lights temporary lights, and what is the time limit? That's.
And
Talk about temporary, is it 90 days? Is it a week? Cause the,
I wondered, should temporary have to do with, the number of days? Or should it also include anything about, time of day? I mean, some people these days start lighting up in September for Halloween.
Right.
And they wrap up in March at the end of Christmas season, and
Mhm.
I would not be comfortable with that as temporary, even
Right.
though.
I mean, we have a bylaw in terms of temporary signs, right?
So I wanna clarify. There's two ways to go about this. So currently in the zoning bylaw is, a few items, excuse me, about lighting that is in basically the parking lot section. The memo in front of you looks at switching out those few items in the zoning bylaw that's actually in the parking 7.7, the parking section. And moving it to a site plan review as part of site plan review. So it's not, it's looking at building light and exterior lighting for buildings in the parking lot as part of site plan. This is not being written as a general bylaw to deal with exterior lights on homes, Christmas lights, temporary lights. That is definitely not the focus of what Christine has put together. And I want to make that distinction.
That. It's just that, like a multifamily project would have to undergo site plan review under, the MBTA communities, section of our bylaw. And in that case, it would still have residential units who might like to light up, or a commercial establishment required to undergo site plan review might want seasonal lighting because they just felt like it. I do understand that this would not apply to the vast majority of residential units in town, not at all.
So I am not sure the board wants to take on the topic of whether somebody can put their Christmas lights on their porch all year long, even in a multifamily development.
Yeah.
I personally, as a planner, do not see that as an element of land use and zoning and site plan review. Yes, a multifamily dwelling under MBTA communities will come through for site plan review, and you can make sure that all the exterior lights at the front doors are dark sky compliant. I do not think it's within the board's purview as part of site plan to tell somebody how long they can have their Christmas lights up or when they can put up their blow up Halloween thing.
But
that-
what about? Sorry,
That's
go
a
ahead.
different conversation.
So I'm putting on my construction cap here on, but when we talk temporary, I talk temp lights and, you know, with the 40Bs, and I'm not sure if we have any, you know, how to say it the right way, any control over this, but typically with any vertical building that's over 4 to 5 stories, you start seeing string of lights everywhere, right? In a lot of times they'll leave them on overnight, you know, and when you start getting 4 or 5 stories up, those lights, you can see them from quite a bit away. Is that something we can dictate anything on, or is that, you know, because to me, the lighting, someone could come in and turn the lighting on at the beginning of the day, at the end of the shift, to tie it to a photo cell or whatever it is, or a time clock and control it. But that's something maybe we could control a bit in terms of, you know, so we don't have that light loss. And I'm not sure if that's worthy, or is that something we just wanna not even touch?
Are you talking about lights during construction?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, my point about this is just to get a definition,
Yeah.
just a definition.
What temporary?
Yeah, correct, because he and I look at temporary versus different than what a lot of.
I'm governed by certain rules when it's temporary
Mhm.
versus permanent.
Right.
So when it's
But-
permanent, I
but-
have to conform.
But the point is, during site plan review, all you are reviewing is permanent lights.
Yep.
You're not reviewing temporary lights. So,
Yeah.
So you're saying that, no, we shouldn't say anything at all about this because it's
Yeah.
a temporary lights, because it's really just about permanent
It's
lights.
because that falls under OSHA for, you know, not task lighting, but just safety lighting, and then,
Mm.
you know, that wouldn't really fall under our, you know, our charge,
Mm.
you know, how to dictate means and methods. I'm sure if they have, you know, you have a vertical structure up with a million lights on it, they're gonna get a lot of complaints about it. But, you know, I see Elizabeth's point, you know, it's not
Well,
really,
I do too, right?
you know,
Yeah.
I certainly agree. I don't want to get into this question of Christmas lights or
no.
someone has a fountain light in front of their house. No, this is not.
Well, and I'll just give you another point of interest. In 2002, in the National Electrical Code, the word fixture was taken out of the definition. So there's no such word in my vocabulary as fixture. It's now referred to as a luminaire.
And
We've
that
got
was
both
one
in
of the
here.
discussion items in here is how did Concord want to use the definition of luminaire versus light fixture versus lamp.
I'm just,
Light fixture with lamp. But no, that's good.
I think we need to conform to the code with luminaire at this point, you know. But but I'm wearing, I'm wearing a different cap, so it's just.
I forgot now, are we even referring to fixture anywhere
So-
in the proposed?
Me,
Oh, here it is. Well, but that's just light fixture manufacturers, it's not
so you can change that to luminaire.
to luminaire manufacturers, it could be.
Cause there is multiple.
yeah, I don't wanna be nitpicky, but that's just,
No,
But-
this is the time to be nitpicky. If you're
Talk
not
to her.
nitpicky now, we'll be sorry later when nobody knows what it says.
No, we don't need conflicting.
Yeah, maybe we could just eliminate all luminaires, maybe, here.
But I think the core question is back to, we don't need to go into the definition of things tonight. Is this something we wanna attack this year for the for a warrant article?
Yes.
I agree. I just wanna make sure, you know, but I wanna see what, you know, those things.
Actually, I have a question for Elizabeth. Right now, as you pointed out, everything we have is in a section on parking, well, plus some other section has a couple of things special for, I've forgotten what it was, some kind of municipal energy something. Are all of those parking uses currently covered by site plan review, such that if we move it to be only taken up under site plan review, all of those, all the same parking, constructions would have to undergo the same lighting standards? Or under, parking, would we need to say, go see the section, but it's not just site plan review, it's everything?
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I phrased that terribly. Right now, in the section on parking, we say parking must follow these zoning regulations. And we're talking about replacing that with these lighting standards under site plan review. If we do that, well, are there any kinds of parking which would then become uncovered, which are currently covered? Or do they all have to undergo site plan review anyway? So putting it under site plan review globally would keep.
They all have to go under site plan review.
Great.
Except for, I guess if somebody has a parking lot and they want to add less than 300 square feet of pavement. But also under site plan review, any change in the layout of the parking triggers site plan review. So I'm not worried about somebody building a parking lot and not having to meet the requirements for lighting.
Okay, great. Site plan review is sufficient to cover it, I'm happy. And there was one other thing for the board to possibly discuss, which is whether all new lighting should be required to be LED. I would say yes, except that rather than saying LED, we should say LED or equivalent or more sustainable lighting. And I would be reasonably comfortable not pinning down what we mean by equivalent or more sustainable, but just saying that and letting some future board tussle over.
right, I would agree too.
I would
because,
agree.
you know,
I wouldn't wanna tie people to technology, because then you have to get a town meeting vote to allow a new technology.
Because the word we used 15 years ago, the interchangeable word was fluorescent. Remember, all lighting had to be fluorescent,
And I don't want to require all lighting to be,
so more equivalent.
it'll be glowworms in 10 years.
So I would agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Does Abby have anything to add, or is she good?
So I have one question actually about that, whether or not all new lighting should be required to be LED. The one thing that I'm thinking of is, and this is just coming off of my experience in the HDC, is using, sometimes it's a newly installed but refurbished or antique fixture that we see. So my question is like, what's new? And would there be exemptions possibly for historic? I think that's really nitpicky, but that's just my one, when I see the LED, I just know that will come up.
Well, should we go to the HDC and ask them to weigh in? I mean, they do have
They,
fake Edison light LED fixtures, but I don't know if the.
yeah, I'm more thinking of like refurbished
Yes.
antique fixtures that do get used.
Abby, wouldn't you say most of those refurbished fixtures just use light bulbs, and those light bulbs are the LED style light bulbs?
Often, yes, but I guess my question is like new lighting. It's like newly installed. Just new. I'm being picky, but
So Christine and I can talk to.
yeah, I would just check in with
And-
with HDC. I mean, I think they have their own guidelines, and obviously it doesn't apply everywhere, but just something to, and they're usually their guidelines are more restrictive. So just
But again, I think some of your examples, Abby, are single family dwellings,
yeah.
and that would not trigger site plan review anyways.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying to think of an instance of something that would really be limited to like something in like, I guess, certain areas of Maine or Thoreau. So yeah.
The floodlights and, stadium lights now are all, those are usually the stuff that I would see, like
Right.
sodium halides back.
High
before.
pressure sodiums or
Yeah.
metal halides,
Yeah.
but now what you're gonna see is recessed LEDs within buildings
Mhm.
on the building structure.
Yep.
Which will be a HDC thing.
So, I think, does anyone else have any comment on it? Moving on to the last item, so any planning board, sorry, go ahead,
Oh.
Ms. Savoy.
So wait, so before you,
Yeah,
before
hold
you
on,
move
sorry.
on, so the direction you would like, so, do you want Christine and I to turn this into an actual warrant article and just these other, and come up with something for these other questions?
I would say yes.
I think we
Okay.
could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms.
All right,
Savoy,
we'll do that.
Carol Savoy, 61 Belknap Street. I just wanted to bring up, because I just ran into this with a business next door, that they have an outdoor light. And when you walk by it, it triggers it to say, hello, you're now being recorded on the outside light. And so I didn't see anywhere in your bylaw that was covered one way or another. And I checked with the building commissioner on that, and he said it wasn't part of the current bylaw. And I don't know if that's what new lights and security systems are doing now, but if we're getting, lots of large buildings that are going to have those things on them, I think we should, come up with something to address them. Because it's kind of annoying.
that's different security lighting.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds horrible, but also sounds like an issue which could take more time to
Yeah.
look into.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I don't
just on the outside of the JB Kitchen and Bath, which is right on Thoreau Street, and they have outdoor lightings, and they just added another light on the side of their building. So it's, I guess you'd call it a security lighting, but it's just a lighting in general that turns on if somebody walks by it, and then it says that. So I think you're missing an opportunity to address that if you're looking at lighting and gonna change some things in the zoning bylaw. I think you should come up with something, whatever the official position is on it. Because you're gonna probably see more and more of it.
Well, there's two questions there. One is the question of lighting that comes on automatically, which I think would certainly be covered by this proposed section, in that it would have to be dark sky compliant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And second is the question of whether separately from the lighting itself, something can, one, tell you you're being recorded, and two, separately actually record you. But neither of those are about lighting, and they're interesting questions which we could possibly take up. But I think it's a bit late to take them up for 2026 as part of this lighting bylaw. But thank you for bringing it to my attention that this exists. Wow.
You can walk right by it on Thoreau Street, and it will, as soon as you walk over, it will turn itself on. It's actually on, but then it like lights up even more at night when you do that. But during the day, if you walk by it, it's kind of right on the side of the building. You can't miss it. You may want to experience it for yourself, and then you may think differently about it, about what you want to put in a bylaw or not, because, we're getting all these large buildings, and, this is kind of a new lighting fixture that's offered out there. More businesses may choose to put them on, which, might become a public nuisance,
It's also no different than a Ring doorbell or any.
Yeah,
doorbell.
but the Ring doorbell doesn't say, hello, you're being recorded. The Ring doorbell just records you.
That's your security. I mean, so, well.
Yeah, it's not the recording that I have the issue with. It's the annoying voice that comes out on the sensor.
Okay, that is different.
We could take it up under the noise bylaw, except that that's not a zoning
Yeah,
question. That's that would go under the select board.
that's a different one.
Yeah, but it is a
Well, it's a-
lighting fixture, right? So if
It
you
is.
say
It
you
is,
don't
but-
allow those lighting fixtures, problem goes away, right? Because you have like in the lighting bylaw that you have examples of what is acceptable and what's non-acceptable at the end of that. You could just put that as a non-acceptable lighting.
We can take a look at it because it's an audio visual device versus just a luminaire.
Right.
So we'll take that under consideration, and I mean, that's just weird, but sidebar comment, but we'll take a look at it and we'll go from there.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. That's it for this. So last item on the agenda tonight is the planning board liaison town planner updates. So Elizabeth.
I have nothing.
Okay. Land use working group, we have a couple meetings coming up. One is to start developing the locations for proposed spots for the DPW to relocate their campus or move some of their operations, but we're putting that together. And then a bigger part of that group is also looking at the consolidation of town offices, and also they're relocating or adding or changing some of the fire and police locations as well. Does anyone else have anything?
Well, as a transportation nerd, I'm excited to learn that the state is considering replacing the rotary with a diverging diamond intersection, but that is just one of the options on the table. And people are still working very hard on MCI Concord, but I have nothing further to report.
I did attend the Samtec meeting this morning from Transportation Advisory Committee. It was very interesting. And I'll just make one observation I have is that there's two big rocks in this whole Transportation Advisory Committee's bailiwick. The kind of the pedestrian bikes, walkability of our town. And can we find some way to have a transit system in Concord? Something we've been talking about for as long as I've lived in Concord. And that discussion was a big part of this morning's meeting. So it was very interesting. There's another meeting on November 18th, which Samtech will give their final report.
Greg, anything?
From economic vitality, I mean, there wasn't anything hugely significant that we need to discuss, out of their goal setting and stuff like that they were working on.
You know, we had the West Concord.
Okay.
Wake up.
Abby, sorry, let me cut you off. Abby, anything to add? Are you good? Nothing. Excellent. All right, and Elizabeth, we need to take a roll call vote to close the meeting, correct?
No.
No, okay, so.
You can just
Apologize.
adjourn the meeting with no.
All right,
further
thanks
business.
for everyone's patience tonight with this long meeting, and have a good night, and I adjourn the meeting.
Good night,
Yeah,
everyone.
I wanted to just make a correction. Mark is the chair of the TAC, and the meetings that Pat was just referring to are on November 19th, not 18th.
Oh, thank you,
Just-
Kevin.
Just for the record. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.